Okay, we good to go?
Always good to go.
I'm just chilling at Canada Life Center.
That's the hard-hitting
That's why.
analysis you listen to the Level Flight podcast for.
Here we go.
Jets are a brisket team, low and slow for the first two periods, and boom, an explosion of flavor in the last few minutes of the third.
Doing all right. Better if my internet would work.
Elliot.
This is comedy. I'm Brian. I'm joined by Connor.
Hello.
And Elliot.
Hey, hey.
Wow, that was fun.
You're listening to the Level Flight podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of LFP Live, the 14th edition. We didn't do it last weekend. It was May long. We're back. I'm super excited. We've got some actual news to talk about as well, as the Jets named a head coach. That's always fun. Brian and Elliot, how are we doing on this beautiful Sunday morning?
I am doing fantastic. If you haven't noticed yet, I've got a bit of a different setting behind me. It's not a green screen. You can't really see it, but I am currently on site at Blue Cross Park before the Goldeyes take on the Lake Country Dockhounds. So you cannot complain about a nice sunny day, 9:05 a.m. at the ballpark, totally quiet. All we have right now, we got Fergie out there cutting the grass. It's all you need.
I mean, there could be a little bit more, but can't really complain about a good day at the ballpark.
Absolutely not.
Exactly. And what, like an 18-degree sunny day at the ballpark? Like, what's better?
My
On
back is
Sunday as
cooking
well?
right now, though. It is
On a
so hot on
Sunday,
my
like,
back.
Nothing better.
I mean, after the last couple days, it's been pretty rough. So I mean,
deserve a nice day at the ballpark. Elliot, how are you doing?
I'm good. Still, you know what? Riding off of all the adrenaline from Friday's Sea Bears win. So that's how we're getting through the weekend. So
Exactly. Well, it's great to see all these people here in chat with us Sunday right at 9 a.m. Even though we took last weekend off, the slackers that we are, everyone's back. We love to see it. Matt, you changed we didn't have time. Brian got in late because he's at the ballpark, and we're out of sorts today, but we're making it work. My mom, good afternoon from Germany. Yes, my mom is. Well, I appreciate you tuning in. Honestly, I didn't expect that because you're in Germany, but my mom is having the vacation of her life in Germany. So I hope she has a great time, and I hope she turns this off so she can go enjoy Germany, because I don't know what's better, LFP Live or Germany. We'll start the show with that. No, I'm kidding. What we will start the show with is the fact that the Jets hired Scott Arniel. This was not a surprise, whatsoever. He's the betting favorite to become the head coach. Everyone was tweeting out that all signs were pointing this way. Elliot Friedman had some, I wonder about this, wonder about that. But in the end, it was always going to be Scott Arniel, and it was. So what was your guys' first thoughts when you heard that Scott Arniel, a late Friday afternoon news dump, as the NHL has come to be masters at with the news dump? But anyways, Elliot, what was your first thoughts when you heard Scott Arniel promoted to head coach?
like you said, it really wasn't a surprise. I mean, we were waiting for it. I think the three of us have gone back and forth jokingly, like almost every day, still waiting for that Scott Arniel news, because it was gonna be, it was gonna be what it was. So I don't know. If I'm being quite honest, I'm not as excited as I would have been if they had just announced it a week after Bones got fired. So, or sorry, I guess I should say retired and left the team.
Retired.
Because that is the correct. I'm pretty sure we all know what happened, but either way.
He's getting pretty old, and I think he did genuinely retire. I just do want to say on Rick Bowness, great job on the Hockey Night Canada panel. He crushed it. He brought great analysis. I tweeted out jokingly, maybe he has a future in the sport. We'll see. But Brian, what was your first reaction when you heard Scott Arniel promoted to HC?
Two things. One, why did we wait this long? And two, there was a little bit of disappointment where the longer it was dragging out, the more I was starting to, maybe it was the delusion in me. Was thinking that maybe the longer this takes, the more likely it is that they, take a little bit of a step outside the organization and then here we are. We're talking about Scott
Yeah.
Arniel for, yet another episode, because it went from, oh, he's definitely it, to maybe not, to, Scott Arniel's been named head coach.
Yeah. Well, the most, I don't want to say like hope, but the most, I don't know what the word is, but the moment where I thought at the most that he might not be HC was when Elliot Friedman was like, hey, Kevin Cheveldayoff, Todd Nelson was an assistant when he was in Chicago. There's a connection there. Maybe they haven't named Scott Arniel yet because they're waiting for Todd Nelson. Todd Nelson and the Hershey Bears are killing it in the AHL playoffs. They're still playing. And now it's Scott Arniel. I will say, I get both sides of the hiring. Like, there's one side that's like, okay, he did great last year. He's been a great associate coach in many different markets. His one shot as a head coach was in Columbus. So can you really like take that at face value? It's the Columbus Blue Jackets.
It's Ohio.
Yeah, like I don't know. Anyways,
Michigan shade. Anyway.
Yeah. I do think like the reason the Jets became such a stingy 5-on-5 team, and they had a good penalty kill last year that Arniel ran. Like that's the positive side to it. And then there's the negative side, which I also understand, where the fans are like, I don't think they did a thorough search. They threw out a few Zoom interviews and went, you know what? We're going to go with the guy we know, the guy with organizational ties, as True North always does. But yeah, like Matt says here, I was a bit disappointed at first, but building off the system in place and making some tweaks would make sense. Yeah, I think there's a chance for this to work. I'm not as negative on it as the majority of the fan base who kind of just rolled their eyes at it. Where are you guys at on that scale in terms of like, this could work because Arniel's a good associate coach and he's proven that he's earned another head coaching job, versus they just threw out a few Zoom interviews and it's not really a new voice and they're just taking the easy way out. Where do you fall on that, Elliot?
I just want to make a little comment here to kind of how this all functions. This feels like, I know I use other sports references all the time, but I actually think this one actually kind of makes sense here. Mm-hmm. This kind of feels like an NFL team going and hiring their OC and making them their head coach. That's essentially what this is. And
it'd be a defensive coordinator because Arniel ran the PK. Boom.
Yeah, or DC. but there you go. But either way, and this is really going to tell if my true theory is going to follow through here. Mm-hmm. You see, there are some OCs and DCs in the NFL that are great coordinators, but then as soon as being a head coach is a tough job, you have much more responsibility. There's more weight on your shoulders. There's more things you have to do. So we need to see if he can do what he was already doing when he was interim head coach and do it at a different level. Because at that same point, he was interim head coach, but he was still listening to Bones before and after games, right? Like, yes, those were his lines. He was making the changes in game, but he still had to listen to what Bones was saying from his house when he was taking care of his wife and that sort of thing, right? So I'm kind of in the middle on this, because obviously I'm not really going to count his time in Columbus, but I do wonder if he is one of those guys that, like some NFL coordinators, are just good coordinators and they continue to get head coaching opportunities and they just aren't fit to be a head coach, but they're just a really good assistant, which it's always good to have a good assistant. But right now it's kind of like, well, yeah.
As BD Longshot says, yeah, perfect. Have it up there. But I agree with you. Like, maybe, I don't know, maybe the Jets thought the same way. Like, he's a really good assistant. We're not sure if he'd work as a head coach. And then this past year where he went like 11-5-2 or whatever the record was as head coach, they had that long winning streak when he was there. Maybe that changed their mind a little bit. I don't know. Brian, where do you fall on that that kind of spectrum of good assistant could be a good head coach versus this is just like the easy decision?
I just feel like not enough red flags are being, raised about the fact that Arniel was in charge of the penalty kill. And the system, like the lack of adaptability with that penalty kill worries me from a head coaching standpoint, because it's kind of been an issue for the last several years where no head coach that has coached the Jets has been able to properly adapt to, other teams, attacks and everything. So I think that's my biggest red flag. And I also just wonder, like a guy on the same staff with clearly some form of the same vision, is that enough to get the team over the hump? Because they've won a single playoff series since 2018. So I have to wonder, like, is this the move that'll actually push them over the top? And I don't know that answer yet. And I do think that with the upcoming, as we've mentioned so many times, the upcoming youth movement, I'm still very interested in seeing how Arniel handles that as a coach, because if you don't implement them properly, as we've seen, there can be a great deal of whether it's disappointment or frustration. And there's so many different aspects of this whole coaching opportunity for Arniel that there's so many question marks for me that I'm just not 100% sure how I feel on it yet. I do. I mean, personally, I would have gone outside the organization. I loved the idea of Todd Nelson. And, I'm not sure if he'd be, willing, because let's be real, Scott Arniel also isn't the youngest individual. He's taking over only his second head coaching job at 60. So he is kind of, late to the party on this for a lot of people, but maybe you inquire with Todd Nelson about becoming an assistant coach to help work with the youth, because he's been very good with that. And you essentially name him heir apparent. And I mean, that to me could be something, which shout out to my mom for texting me that earlier, being like, hey, do you think Todd Nelson would want to be an assistant coach? I'm like, maybe, because let's be real, like he's kind of been working his way back up ever since, losing his chance with the Oilers after he, replaced Dallas Eakins. But no, I think that the first year will be interesting to me to see if there's any sort of systems changes, or if it's just going to be a idea of, hey, this worked last year, let's roll with it. But is that enough to get them through the first round of the playoffs for the first time since 2018?
Yeah, I do want to talk about like what our expectations are in terms of like the differences going into next season. A lot of people are bringing up assistants in the chat, like Brad Lauer. Scott Arniel was the assistant associate coach this year, ran the PK and the defense. Brad Lauer, the power play. What a lot of people are saying, like, I think that like good assistant coaches are important. The fan base will be happier if Arniel hires new assistants to replace the current ones.
Brad Lauer can't come back.
Oh God, please God, no.
I was gonna say, how important do you think assistant coaching or like bringing back new assistants would be for the next year the Jets? Brian, go ahead.
It's massive. We saw so many issues on special teams that if the Jets even consider running back the same sort of idea of this power play, the same idea of this penalty kill, whether it's with Lauer or otherwise, they're fooling themselves into thinking spur of the moment pressure. I truly think that if Brad Lauer comes back, I don't know what the plan is with the coaching staff, because aside from Gabe Vilardi revitalizing things whenever he was in the lineup, the power play was awful. And then there was the penalty kill, which is essentially just, lay down and die and hope they don't score. There needs to be a new outlook on special teams, because the rest of the league is getting aggressive with them, and the Jets are falling back into passive, and they're falling behind in that aspect. And if they don't adapt to that with new, visions from these assistant coaches, then you're looking at another year where everyone's like, oh, the power play is not as good as it should be. Oh, the penalty kill needs to improve. And I think that is a massive thing for them to take that next step in their success, because as we saw, penalty kill, power play down the stretch, it hurt them.
Yes. Elliot.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Brian, you mentioned Gabe Vilardi. I mean, the only way that specific power play setup that they have works is if Gabe Vilardi's in the lineup. It does not work if he's not in the lineup. But I also want to say, you're telling me a power play of Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, Josh Morrissey, and let's even add Gabe Vilardi isn't like what were their numbers this year? Like, you're telling me that power play isn't at least like above 15 into the 17, 18%. Like as a baseline, you're telling me that they can't even get there. Like that's bad. And yeah, the PK, one of the biggest, I know I don't have as much hockey knowledge as both of you guys, but the biggest thing I think I've seen from watching the remainder of the playoffs, like the Western Conference and Eastern Conference finals, none of these teams have a like passive box penalty kill. It is
I was going to bring this up.
Yeah. It's all like aggressive. We're going to attack you as soon as you get the puck, we're attacking you. Like the wingers are attacking D at the blue line. We've got D going into the corners to make sure that like you are limiting time and space. And that is so key for some of these like really good power plays. Like the Jets penalty kill against the Avs, we're just saying, yeah, you can pass it 500 times. That's fine. But, we're going to have Adam Lowry and Logan Stanley and everybody else just block shots random, like, and get lucky. Like you can't just get lucky.
The biggest tell of that was that New York Carolina series. I swear those teams weren't even told that they were on the penalty kill. Like they didn't even see the guy going to the box.
Power kill, baby.
They're just flying. Like there's no
Connor
sitting back. There's no. Yeah.
Do you remember in the middle of that 6-game losing streak near the end of the season there?
I do.
Do you recall what you said after the Jets got embarrassed on the penalty on their power play against the Oilers? Because the Oilers were playing so incredibly aggressive. The Jets power play didn't know how to handle it. And then whenever the Oilers went on the power play, it was just, I'm going to stand in one spot and hope they miss. And your point was, how do you look at how effective the Oilers penalty kill is against your power play and then run out the same system that no one else is running and can consistently game plan against? Like you brought that up weeks ago. It was still a regular season when you talked about that.
Yeah. And I remember actually, now that you bring this up, I remember asking Rick Bowness about the aggressiveness of the Oilers penalty kill. And he didn't answer it. Basically. He just said, yeah, we expected that. Like we knew that was coming. And then I remember the next LFP, I was like, it didn't look like they knew it was coming because they were just so shocked when there'd be a player on Josh Morrissey right at the blue line. And I'm glad you brought up the Edmonton Oilers, who, by the way, have by far the best special teams in the playoffs and stole a game on the road because of it in Dallas and are going back home with home ice advantage in the Western Conference Finals. Like, and hey, Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid don't kill penalties, and their goaltender Stuart Skinner. You can have a good penalty kill without having superstar Connor Hellebuck in net.
Can you imagine
it's possible.
if we had a good setup with Connor Hellebuck? I don't want to know what they did. I would feel so bad for the rest of the teams in the league to know what our penalty kill percentage would be. You're telling me if we played an aggressive style and allowed Connor Hellebuck to have easy shots, you're telling me that wouldn't be like an 89% or 88% penalty kill? Yeah. Maybe that's a little high, but like you're telling me.
I mean, they won the Jennings because of their 5-on-5 defensive structure, which was aggressive in the neutral zone, things like that.
That's what's so weird to me. Like they were so structurally sound, and there was aggression in their defensive system at 5-on-5. Why do they just abandon that as soon as they go down a man? Like clearly there's something that's working there. I don't know. Like that. Maybe that's why I'm so kind of like irked by the Arniel thing, is because he was running the penalty kill and we just saw the weirdness of how they just didn't do anything that could possibly, advance that.
Although let me bring something up here, because Elliot brought up football. Am I wrong to think like head coaching is mainly about like managing personalities? Because the assistants are running the penalty kill and the power play. And yeah, you sit there in the meeting and say, okay, we're going to tweak this to our system or tweak this breakout. But I just feel like head coaching is more about managing the locker room than it is like X's and O's. Am I wrong to think that? You think so? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
It's always been.
I feel like it's a little bit more
at the higher levels anyway.
At the NHL level though, like I feel like in terms of, especially even just in hockey in general, they have a drastically smaller coaching staff that's directly involved in the actual game itself. where I do think the coach is more involved in that sense. Like I know that, certain line changes and in-game adjustments are always on the head coach and things like that.
Totally. Totally.
But with like football and most other, you've got obviously you got the head coach, you got the OC, the DC, the quarterbacks coach, the linebackers coach, the offensive,
a special teams coach.
It's so specialized that it really, especially at those sports, like it's so much more. Hey, coach, make sure that these people actually go out there and play the game they love. But I think like the NHL, I feel like there is a little bit more involvement with the coaching staff comparatively. But yeah,
I like my comparison mentally comes from like Dan Campbell doesn't call offensive plays. He doesn't call defensive plays. You know what he does? He stands there on 4th and 3 and goes, "Yeah, stay out there." And then he's one of the best head coaches in the league because he's the best at like building a culture and managing the locker room. Like he's not drawing up plays. Like Ben Johnson is one of the best OCs in the league, and he's had head coaching. Like it's
will
two different
say,
sports, but I feel like coaching in pro sports, maybe not the NBA as much because they're hands on. But I don't know. I feel like it's more managing personalities.
Well, but it's not even that. Like you look at someone like Mike D'Antoni. Wasn't a very good head coach. He ran his system and told his assistants, "We're running this." He was better when he was an assistant coach, and coaches kind of just went, "Hey, yeah, I really like the style of play that you want to play. Let's run it this way."
Pick and choose things out of
So the NBA is like that too, right? But I don't know. It's an interesting situation with Arniel because, and I've been reading the chat as we're going here. In terms of the youth movement, I don't know if I want Arniel coaching any of these guys. Like the style of play, that these prospects are like to play is not the style of play that the Jets want to play. That's what gets me confused. You look at a Brad Lambert, like he is a speedy transition player that needs to get up and go to make his game work, right? Just as a guy, as an example, right? You even look at a Ville Heinola, just another example. He's a puck moving, wants to play with pace, wants to play in transition. That's not the Jets don't like to play in transition. They like to play slow. They like to slow and grind the opponent. So if Scott Arniel is the head coach for once this youth movement happens, I really don't know / don't like where this is going because I think we're going to have another situation of just as an example. I know that other things have happened previously, but I really don't need this situation of Patrick Laine is a shooter. Please don't tell him to go out there and be a power forward and change his game. Just as an example, we don't need that happening with multiple different prospects.
I will say, when I'm going to go back to this comment from like 10 minutes ago, but Dom brought this up. They did go on a 6-game losing streak. Arniel wasn't there the whole time. Arniel took over in the Rangers game, which was one of the best wins of the season for the Jets. And then they went on the 6-game losing streak. Again, Bonus came back in the middle of that 6-game losing streak. But I want to talk about this because in the 6-game losing streak, after 2 games, Nikolai Ehlers was on the top line and Cole Perfetti was in the top 6. For Rick Bonus, he came back, then the lines went back. Then it took to the end of the 6-game losing streak where he went, all right, we got to change something. And Ehlers, Shifley, Velarde came back. Then the Jets went on an 8-game losing streak to go into the playoffs, then switched the lines back and round 5. But I just feel like Arniel, I saw someone posted on Twitter as well. When he was the coach, Perfetti and Ehlers actually played the end of games. They finished games, which wasn't a thing under Rick Bonus either. So I think he could be the coach, not for the style of play, but for the fact that he won't just bench Perfetti at every turn. I think that hopefully was brought up in the interview process. Hey, this Cole Perfetti kid, we really believe in him. We think he's a top 6 forward. How would you handle a young player, especially with what he went through last season? I don't know. I think that would be a prime question for your newest head coach. And I wouldn't.
You played him. Will you do it again if we make you head coach?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably
all right.
Yes. You're hired.
Here's the contract.
Exit interviews. The guys were asking about the younger guys, playing more of a role. So that you have to think that at least in some aspect of this decision that was brought up in the the process of hiring him as a full-time head coach, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Doug is asking basically what youth movement we're talking about, which is a great question because what we're predicting is over the next 2 to 3 years, Ville Heinola, Brad Lambert, Nikita Chibrikov, Rucker McGroarty, not this upcoming season, but next season, maybe Chaz Lucius, if he's able to stay healthy, all are going to need NHL time. Like the Jets are
Well,
going
then
to need entry-level contracts. These guys are hitting 21, 22 years old. That's when
Salmonson.
they
you can
make the
extend that
NHL.
to the
Salamonson.
like the consistent play of Cole Perfetti because he's as young as
Perfetti.
some of these guys. Ville Heinola playing a role, so like you're getting guys under the age of 24 to play notable minutes.
And like what we think is like they're going to hit a point where they have to play. Like Ville Heinola is at the point where he has to be in the NHL next season or they'll lose him on waivers for nothing.
His
so-
contract's up, so
Right. I get he is an RFA though. Colby Barlow, maybe he's another
Yeah.
he's further down the line, but yeah, I think there will be a youth movement over the next 2 years, especially when you see Rutger come in. I would bet Brad Lambert's a Jet sometime in the next 2 seasons, and if Rutger's in the next year and Chibrikov is even older than Lambert, and he looked good in that one game. I know it's one game, but he might need a chance. He's a second round pick. Like he was great in the AHL this year, so I could see a youth movement big time over these next couple of years. Matt, when Sheffield was out, Jet centers were Lowry, Nemeskov, Toninato, and Kapari. That was a dark time. That was the Leafs back to back, I think, and then the Bruins game where it's just
tough.
oof. But hopefully Brad Lambert can come in and be well. Actually, Matt brought up that point and then brought up the point of talking to UFAs. There's also contract projections that we should maybe talk about maybe after the break for a little bit, but I think it was Evolving Hockey. It had Sean Monahan's contract projection at 3 years, $5.5 million, which I think is a little too much, especially when, like I said, I think Brad Lambert's going to be an NHL center in the next 2 years. We'll see, but back to Arniel. Do we have any final thoughts about the hiring and like any predictions for next year? Like, do we think Perfetti will play more of a role, or maybe he's I remember, I'm not sure if it was you, Brian, or Elliot, but one of you brought up the fact that the next head coach needs to have a discussion with Nikolai Ehlers because he's got 1 year left on his deal and what's going to happen there. So what are your guys' predictions? Brian, I'll start this one with you. How do you think Arniel's going to run the bench? And do you think it'll be less biased, let's say, than last year where Ehlers and Perfetti were just constantly benched down the stretch?
If we look at the sample size of him running the bench in those games that Rick couldn't be around, and we do use that as something as a predictive thing, then I think there will be more of a willingness to adapt and get away from things that haven't been working for too long. I feel like for me, even if he's slightly more adaptable than what we saw down the stretch there, I'm going to be happier with the situation, because what I can't possibly handle for another season is watching 45 to 60 games of a line that struggles just get stuck together without change. So
Yeah.
I need to see his willingness to have that level of, oh, this isn't working, change it. And then not just that, stick with the other solution for longer, because your changes don't matter if you run with it for 2.5 periods and say, you know what, no, I'm going to go back to what wasn't working before. So
yeah,
that's where I'm watching. I need to see how he handles changes and how he follows up with that.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Elliot, what are you watching for?
I mean, it's basically what Brian just said. I think it has to do with line combos. Obviously, there was lots of encouraging stuff we saw last year when he was head coach, and he made some okay changes. But I think now, obviously, he is now head coach. We need to see it happen over the course of a full season, right? Yeah. Well, I say that, and then you never know, and maybe the Jets are like 7th in the Central, and something else happens.
Well, yeah, I think that would be
That would be very bad. But
right.
it's still, it's professional sports. It's still a possibility. You never know.
Absolutely.
Things. I need to see how this gels. Somebody earlier mentioned about, oh well, the players like him, so I don't think that's good as a head coach. Unfortunately, the way of professional sports now is if you're not a player's head coach, you don't have a job as a head coach. You have to be a player's head coach now. You see
Managing
lots of teams. Yeah, you're managing personalities, first off. Second of all, you need to be able to speak to the players. And in today's world, you get respect from the players if you understand them at a personal level. You look at Rick Bowness. Yes, it didn't work in the playoffs, but they were a great regular season team, and he got way more out of the players during the regular season.
Changed the culture.
Because they respected him, and he was not a friend, but he was more of a he was a more friendlier face to be around.
Straight up players coach. All the players talk about how he reached out to them like many times over the course of the off season. Like Mason Appleton just had a kid. And he was talking about, or Rick Bowness was talking about how he's going to reach out to him. And like, he's totally a player's coach, and they respected him.
And you need to be that in today's, you see lots of you have to be that to a certain extent, right? In today's professional sports, you see lots of coaches that aren't, and they don't last very long. Players lose all respect. They then don't listen, and these are guys with huge egos. You have to manage egos, and if those egos get out of control, then you have no control over your team after a while, right? So I'm interested to see if Arniel can keep this culture alive. And I know he was one of the coaches a part of it, but it'll be interesting now that he's the figurehead, if he can keep this going and also keep that respect from the players, because that's how you get the most out of guys, is if there's the mutual respect between the two.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how this carries over into next season, into training camp. Scott Arniel is speaking to the media tomorrow at 11 a.m. So we'll see what his first press conference goes like. Last thing before we go to break, Mark Sports Video saying Arniel set up to fail because the bar set too high because of what the Jets did last season. I can kind of see that. Like, the Jets were the fourth best team in the NHL last year. And at face value, if they don't finish fourth or highest, people are just going to be like, oh, well, they're worse.
Well, they took a step back. Yeah.
Well, they took a step back. Right. And I think the roster and all the UFAs that are coming up, I think it's almost like a given that the Jets are going to step back at least a little bit. Maybe their ceiling as a team will be higher if a Brad Lambert just develops in a way that we're not expecting. But I don't see the way that they replicate the regular season. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, it's a tough situation because I failed to see another season that has had this sort of start to an off season where up until yesterday, how sort of uncertain everything was. And the fact that there's still all these guys that need to be signed, and there's these players who might be developing next year. And I think that for a coach to come in, whoever it is, Scott Arniel or whoever, in a level of uncertainty at this level, and to live up to the expectations of, oh, they finished fourth in the league, can they, push it any further than that? I think what Mark Sports Video was saying is right, where if he doesn't come out and win a playoff round this year, everyone's gonna be like, well, what's the point?
Yeah. That's just the unfortunate, like, we've said this many times, but it's a results-based business, and if you don't get the results, you're going to get criticized for it. And I don't think that the Jets are set up in a good spot to get the same results, especially when Nikolai Ehlers, or if, I'm not going to say when yet, even though it's very likely, if Nikolai Ehlers is traded, that's a big hole. And then Sean Monahan maybe doesn't come back. Like, there's a lot to the first 12 games of the season are going to be huge. Like, if they come out and go like, I don't know, 3-7 in their first 10, people are going to be like, all right, Arniel's got to go. Like, it's going to be immediate. And this is an important start to the season. Every new head coach, like, the start of the season is really important, but it's a really, 8 games. Okay. Maybe 8 games. They start like 2-6 and it's done. Season's over. No, but let's take a break. You're going to hear a word from DraftKings. We'll be right back. We're going to talk a little bit about the NHL playoffs, a little bit about the summer sports here in Winnipeg, the Goldeyes and the Sea Bears. Then we're going to take questions, and then we're going to head out. And I'm going to head down to the ballpark and join Brian. But you're going to hear a word from DraftKings. We will be right back. Thanks for listening to LFP Live number 14. During the ad, hit the like, hit the subscribe. We'll be back in a minute and a bit.
We're this close to crowning the Stanley Cup champion, and with the action heating up on the ice, it's even hotter at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New to DraftKings? Listen up. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500. Just deposit at least $5 and you'll get a bonus bet back equal to your first bet if it doesn't hit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500 if your first bet doesn't hit. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget, Lake Charles. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
And welcome back into episode 14 of LFP Live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're here every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. talking Jets when there finally is some news to talk about, like this one. But it was dry there for a week and a bit. We had to talk about the NHL playoffs because there was literally nothing. We covered the Nikolai Ehlers, what we thought was going to happen there. We covered the coaching thing, and we were just waiting for something to happen. But we're glad all of you are joining us here on this Sunday morning. And yeah, where's Sammy Smokes? We got to talk about brisket.
We haven't had any conversation about coffee or brisket, and we hit the ad break. I'm worried about
what is going on. We're rusty. We took a week off and we're rusty. That's the problem. Let's get into the Goldeyes and the Sea Bears. Let's start with the Goldeyes, Brian. They're kind of rolling through this homestand here. They wrap it up today at 1:00, like you said, against the Lake Country Doghounds. Just maybe go through the Goldeyes, where they're at in their season, and especially this homestand, which has been a success.
Yeah, absolutely. So they are now kind of they found some things that have worked for them that they were struggling with early, and they swept a doubleheader yesterday, which that doubleheader was the first time in a few games here where it looked like everything was clicking. You had a Max Murphy homer who he had 4 hits in the doubleheader there. So if he starts heating up, everyone else on this team is going to look so much better, because it's hard for everyone to make up anything that isn't happening when, Max isn't clicking like he has in the past, where, I was doing some things too, where I had to look back at some stats, and last year, where it was not a very easy season by any means. Yeah. Last year I was looking at the home run numbers. Max Murphy had 26. The next highest was 8.
Oh my goodness.
That was Edekel Gonzalez, who, left the team this year. But over this last few games here, you're seeing, the power strokes coming through a little bit. The pitching has been outstanding. You are going to be down the stretch here. Once it gets warmer, I think that you're going to see this team both literally and figuratively heat up, because they've got some really good arms in the bullpen as well. Nick Trogerlick-Iverson in the cold last night was hitting 94 on the gun. Just he had some incredible stuff last night, where he came in after with the bases loaded in the bottom or in the top of the 6th. Because it was a 2-7 inning, games there, and he struck out 2 batters to get out of that inning, and then proceeded to close it out. And then Jake McMurray won it last night. So, what's so nice is seeing this team of guys that have more to give and struggle to a bit to start. You're really seeing it start to come together here, and Logan and the coaching staff, they stuck with their guns. And I mean, we saw it on Thursday where there has still been some issues with the bullpen. Joey Matulovic had a no hitter going into the seventh inning. 6 2/3 no hit innings, and then they ended up losing that game because of a home run in the eighth. So it's a tough situation when you're really, really close to being that really competitive team, but I think they're putting it together here. And as I said, as it heats up, it's going to be a lot of fun to see these guys really click. And let's be real, if Max Murphy looks like Max Murphy of the last several years, buckle up, because if he's starting to heat up, there's really no stopping him when he's on. So
yeah, he's been uncharacteristically batting like 110 to start the season, which that's not going to hold.
He's up near 200 now after yesterday.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Elliot, crazy finish to the first Sea Bears home opener game. Maybe just take people through what happened in that game, and more importantly, the final, or just target score time in general is crazy.
So gonna back it up quickly here, just so you get some context. So they played 2 games in 3 days. So doesn't always happen, especially in a league like this, where you get that short of a time frame. But they played on Wednesday in Saskatchewan, did not look good at all. And Saskatchewan, because they're not very good, just couldn't put them away. I'm not kidding. Target score is supposed to last like 3 minutes at most, 3-4 minutes. And I think I was seeing that they had to go to commercial twice for target score on Wednesday. It was bad. Teddy Allen literally literally single-handedly by himself won the Sea Bears the game. Anyhow, so they had their home opener on Friday. In front of, it was 9,117 fans. So they essentially filled out the lower bowl. They had the suites open.
It's great atmosphere.
Great atmosphere. People were, Mike Moriali, the commissioner, was in the house. He was ready to go. So it was a fantastic game. And more context to the end of the game. So the Sea Bears it was in the first half. They didn't hit their first 3 until about 2. I was rewatching the game yesterday. Till about 2.5 minutes left in the second quarter. They were 0 for 15 to start the game. By the way, I was sitting up in the press box and I didn't even notice it. I didn't even realize it.
I kind of realized it. Well, I'm
sure you.
Well, man, they couldn't hit a shot. At least what I was watching for, they weren't turning the ball over, which they did at times on Wednesday, but they could not hit a shot. It felt like
it felt hilariously enough. They were, I believe, either 1 for 16 or 2 for 17 going into the half, and it was tied at 48. So I honestly, I didn't realize until Mike Sawatsky afterwards. We were speaking to Mike Taylor, and Sawatsky said you guys were 0 for 15 at one point. What was the message? And I kind of went, wait a minute. Yeah, you guys could make a 3. Anyhow,
make a play.
Make a play. So it was a back and forth game. Both teams led by double digits at multiple points in the game. And it came down to, it was Sea Bears were up. They were up by, I think they were up by a couple. Then it was 103-103. Kadre Gray comes down for the Shooting Stars, one of their new acquisitions. He was Canadian Player of the Year last year. He had a huge three late in the shot clock to put the Shooting Stars up 3, and target score was 107. So they only needed a basket. Literally anything wins them the game. So obviously Sea Bears go down, and they barely even ran a play. I think Mason Boursier came down the left wing. Teddy got a screen at the top. He came over the top and hit a huge 3 to tie the game now at 106. So now your game is next basket wins. They come down. The Shooting Stars come down. Was that after? Yes, that was after they called timeout. They ran a play. Jackson Rowe drove through the lane. I'm gonna, because I have media credentials, I have to say this quite carefully. You can tell by the tone of my voice, there was a foul call.
It was a bad call. I don't have media credentials. It was a terrible call. It was a horrible call. I was in the stands. It was a horrible call.
Elliot's
Anyways.
like, I could neither confirm nor deny whether it was a good or a bad call. And Connor immediately goes, I don't care.
Yeah, no, it was a terrible call. It was terrible.
There was a foul call. And so
Yes.
Jackson Rowe had a chance to win the game on 2 free throws. This will be the only time I'm going to criticize anything the CBL does. That is the one thing I hate, that the game can end on 1 free throw. That is my biggest gripe about the target score. It either needs to be that you need to hit both free throws, or fouls at that point in the game are just on the floor foul and you take it out on the side. The game should not end on a free throw. That's my biggest gripe. Anyway, it didn't, because the crowd had their best moment of the game. They were loud the entire night. I don't think I have been in an arena that loud since, I was saying to the guys, probably 2019 when I was at the NCAA Final Four and there were 75,000 people inside US Bank Stadium. That is not an exaggeration. I couldn't think. It was loud. Jackson Rowe missed both free throws. Don't blame the guy. Kelly Allen grabs the rebound, dribbles down the floor. He dribbled into the paint, drew 2 defenders, kicked to Alex Campbell, who I actually had some people in my mentions who were griping about his play recently. Well, you can't really say anything about what he did. He hit the game-winning 3. Sea Bears win 109-106. Also importantly, he was the first Canadian to hit 1,000 points with that shot. Couldn't have drawn it up any better than that. Guy was having a bad game.
Story.
He almost fouled out, by the way, as well, in target score time. I wish I could pull up the audio quicker. But we were interviewing Jared Ogabemi Jackson, who also actually I think had a really good second half, and Alex Campbell. So Jared accidentally gave the foul, by the way, for people who don't know. It wasn't said anywhere. I have the audio. I just haven't released anything yet. Jared actually gave the foul to Alex Campbell because he thought he had 4 fouls. So Jared went to the referee. They were trying to figure out what number, and he said 666. And so they gave the foul to Alex, but he didn't realize that Alex fouled out of the game because of that. So then Mike Taylor went to Mike Taylor went to the refs and went, whoa, go back and look, because Jared then realized, oh God, I just made a mistake. And so then they reversed it, so he got to come back into the game. So
yeah. It was crazy finish. Yeah. Is Elliot a b-ball fan? I can't tell. Yeah. Hey man,
we all have our specialties.
That's your sport.
Matt, I've been playing ball for literally my entire life. So
yeah. It's
nuts.
Yeah. Matt, yeah, there you go. Get in my seats there in the first row. They're pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie. Thanks to my dad for
sitting in the penalty box.
Sitting in the penalty box. Exactly. Anyways, let's open up the questions part of the episode. Again, the Sea Bears, crazy atmosphere. If you're able to make it down, it's truly, like Elliot brought up the fact that it wasn't that loud since the Final Four. It truly is an incredible atmosphere. Like, again, you can't replicate the Winnipeg whiteout or anything like that, but man, basketball is awesome because your team can go on a 10-0 run and then the crowd just goes nuts. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm super excited. I'm super excited for this Goldeyes game today. It's gonna be a beautiful day at the ballpark. Get your tickets, goldeyes.com/tickets.
I was just gonna say, yeah. So it's, if you want to bring your family, Sunday family fun days. We've got things going on out at the Peak of the Market picnic park. So things like bounce houses, and you can have players coming out and giving autographs and taking photos and stuff like that. So it's a great family environment as it is. But things like these Sundays, fantastic stuff. There's fresh fruit from Save on Foods. It's a great day to bring out the family, bring out the kids. And it's going to be a good game too. So yeah, they're wrapping up. It's getaway day here today. They're heading down to Fargo this week. And then they're going to be back actually on Friday against the Lincoln Salt Dogs to start off another homestand there. But as Connor said, get your tickets, goldeyes.com/tickets. If you can't make it to the game, you can watch it, aabaseball.tv. It's free, much like CBL Plus. You can catch everything there. And, as Connor brought up last week, maybe you're in the car, maybe you're driving. You can't tune in on your phone because that's illegal. You turn on the radio, 93.7 CJ and UFM. You're going to be able to listen to our wonderful voice of the Goldeyes, Trevor Curl, who is doing a great job in his first season here as the play-by-play voice of our fish. But no, definitely, if you're debating coming out to the game today, it is absolutely gorgeous. I'm looking right now at the flags. They're all blowing out to left field, which means our right-handed hitters could feast. This is a great day for ball. And man, does that grass look ever good. That is, you should be here.
You should be here. Check it out. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. I saw Matt brought up earlier, June 18th at the ballpark, WST Goldeyes patio party night. Super pumped for that. I'm not working it, but I might have I might be there, I might not. I still don't know. It's too far away for my schedule.
I need to figure that out too.
Yeah. Oh, Doug, bounce houses, he's going. Boom.
Hey, listen, if I get a single, if I'm on the radio and I hear we are having a situation down in the picnic park, there's a grown man in the bounce house, I'm gonna know it's you. So you've just given yourself away.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, that's why they're there. It's not just for the kids. It's for anyone. You buy a ticket
for Doug.
You get the bounce house. There you
go.
Doug.
For my dad.
It's for Doug. Exactly. All right. The questions are starting to flow in. Drop your questions below. They can be Jets related because we are a Jets podcast. They can be related. I mean, how do you think the brisket inside joke came up? It can be about anything. It can be about food, coffee. It can be about the Jets as well. Let's start. Do the Jets replace their assistant coaches? We did kind of touch on this a little bit. Do you think so, Elliot?
You have to.
I don't think they do. I don't think they do.
Why don't
I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't they have
to bring in at least one more.
Yeah, they have to.
They have to replace they could move everyone into their regular position, and then I think Nolan Baumgartner is the defensive coach in the AHL, organizational ties, bring him up. I'm telling you, this might be it. They're trying to build a full coaching staff. They're trying to get all the Infinity Stones, all former Moose players, all former Jets. They're trying to build up that coaching staff to be.
How are you going to have two former Moose goal? Well, no, okay, sorry. The current Jets goalie coach is
Wade Flaherty.
Wade Flaherty.
Yeah, and who's the Moose goalie coach?
Drew McIntyre.
Yeah. So isn't that also a former Moose goal? Isn't Drew McIntyre? No,
I think so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So you can't.
No, Drew McIntyre was. Yeah, he.
Okay, yeah.
He had some great years there. I think he was actually with Flaherty. There was that little stint there before Schneider came in, and then a little bit after too, where there was a nice little carousel there of goaltenders who are apparently now making their way into coaching roles with the Jets.
Yeah. Hey man, I'm telling you, Brian brought it up earlier. Brad Lauer, the power play was simply not good enough last year. I could totally see them replacing him, bringing in someone else to bring a new system into the power play and coach it a little bit differently. They definitely have to hire one assistant coach. Do they promote from within in terms of the Moose? We'll see, but I just don't think they will. I think they'll give Scott Arniel and this coaching staff another run. They'll promote one assistant, and that'll be that. Now, that's not to say that do we have a chance of getting Mark Savard as an associate coach? Again, I just don't see it. I think they just promote from within, or maybe Todd Nelson, like you brought up earlier, Brent. I don't know. Maybe. That's how I see it playing out. I see them promoting a guy from within the Moose, or maybe going off the board. But other than that, I think the rest of the coaching staff is going to stay the same. And then that goes back to Mark Sports Video's point earlier on. What if the power play struggles in the first 8 games? Then everyone's going to be like, oh, Brad Lauer, you brought him back, whatever. It'll be important for this coaching staff for sure. If the Jets trade Ehlers, do they get roster players or futures? Question from CMAC. Murat Atesh brought up the fact that he was expecting Ehlers to be shopped. And then the next week on Winnipeg Sports Talk, he said he's more than guessing when he says he thinks it'll be draft capital based, the return, rather than like a roster player coming back, which I don't know. I mean, the Jets don't have their first. They traded it for Sean Monahan. They don't have their third. They traded it for Toffoli. Next year, they don't have their second, Toffoli as well. I could totally see them getting draft capital. What do you guys think it'll end up being, Brian?
No, I'm of the mindset too, just based on the recent sort of dialogue on it, that the perception has now shifted from, oh, they're going to use him to get a top 4 defenseman, to they're going to use him to get a bunch of draft capital.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how I feel about that, because obviously we know the need for a top 4 defenseman. But I mean, if you're going to get something in futures, it's going to have to be a decent amount. So I'm wondering if they're getting some sort of a read on his market, and that's why this is coming out now. But yeah, I mean, as I said in a couple episodes ago, I don't think you can win a trade with this situation.
Yeah. Elliot, what do you think it'll end up being? Roster players or futures?
It's probably futures. And then what happens is they potentially use those futures to go get, either they use the picks, then use those players to go get somebody else. I have a feeling this is going to be a very long roundabout way for the Jets to go use that player. To use Ehlers to go get a roster player. Like, I don't think this is going to be Ehlers
flipping it
for, it'll just be flip. Oh, and we end up with a roster player. Like, there's going to be some sort of trade tree here, but
that might be the case. I also do think, like, outside of Elias Salomonson, I don't think the Jets are very happy with how their defensive prospect pool looks. So I could totally see them trading for pick 17. I don't even know who holds that pick. I'm just throwing it like a late first, mid to late first for Nikolai Ehlers, and then taking a defenseman with that pick, because again, they have all these forwards. They've taken forwards in 4 straight years in the first round. But Elias Salomonson, second round pick, has developed quite nicely. But behind him, there's not much there on the blue line. Can the Jets trade Schmidt at 50% retained to a team with a young decor for a late round pick? That would open up cap space and not bury money for 2 seasons. More importantly, open up a roster spot. Question from Matt Hyman. I think they could trade him maybe at full contract value, because there's only 1 year left if they attach a draft pick. But I do think at 50% retained, and they could get something in return if they retained money, I think. What do you guys think about? I'm going to put Pionk in this conversation as well, because they both have 1 year left on their deals at roughly $6 million. Do you guys think that there's any chance? I mean, Schmidt's obviously more likely than Pionk, but that we see both of them, either one of them bought out and one of them traded. Where do you see that situation playing out, Brian?
It just doesn't seem as if there's an appetite to do that right now. Like, it feels as if that they're satisfied just waiting out the extra year of the contract, which I don't think is the right decision, because it handcuffs you a lot this year. And then the fact that I don't think we'll ever see a situation where Neil Pionk isn't in the top 4. Unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like it's, something in the organizational philosophy of moving him down to that third pairing, because that would be best if you are planning on, keeping him. But I don't know. It just doesn't. I'm not getting the pulse on the idea that they're gonna, move on from either of these guys. It just seems more likely that they just ride it out for the next season and then figure it out after next year.
Yeah, Elliot, where are you at with the Schmidt and Pionk situations?
I think the only way that you get them off the roster is you probably trade them to a team that has a ton of cap space that's just trying to hit the cap floor. Like, that's and you're
Chicago.
Like, I would think that Pionk maybe gets a little bit more because he's been playing more minutes, but like somebody like Nate Schmidt probably goes to a Blackhawks or a San Jose Sharks that just have a ton of cap space, and I don't really think the Jets get anything back for him. I just think that they probably have to give up a draft pick just to have a team take on the space. But it does open up roster spots, or a roster spot and money, like Matt Hyman says.
Yeah. Clay Sny bringing up the Winnipeg Thunder. They also had a great fan base, but the league did not. Would Winnipeg be considered for a WNBA team if they see EBL folded, or would that cut too much into the Winnipeg Jets ticket base? I think they would be considered, and I also I think the CEBL does have a really good fan base, and they really are
Yep.
growing.
Yeah.
But I mean, a WNBA team, if the CBL folded, would work. I don't know if both would work at the same time. Like I don't know if like Winnipeg's a basketball town, so I'm sure it could work. But the WNBA is going crazy right now with Caitlin Clark playing like 7 games in
I
the
feel
first
like
2 weeks.
if
of the
there's going to
season.
be another one in Canada, it would probably be Vancouver.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Toronto was
Toronto
only
just
just
got one.
awarded.
Yeah, the league's been around
So
for almost 30 years, and Toronto just got a team.
it would
So-
be immense amounts of time down the line.
I think so too. Thoughts on the Canes promoting their analytics guy? You mean the hockey blogger, Toloski or whatever his name is?
Eric
I was
Tulski.
reading Eric Tulski. I was reading the article on how I watched the video on someone explaining. It was Mike Bartner. Go follow him. He's great. He did the video on how he
we love
was
Mike.
blogging and did has like a PhD from Harvard and all these super smart things that smart people do, and then made a hockey blog.
Sounds
and then
very Canes signing like.
yeah. Oh, my thoughts on it though. Nikolai Ehlers is a Carolina Hurricane. That's my thought on it. that's
Wouldn't shock
where
me.
I'm at.
Would
That's where I'm
not
at.
shock
They
me at all.
promoted an analytics guy. There you go.
Can I just
Paulie
go
showing up. Good day. Yeah.
Can I just go
ahead,
back
yeah.
to the comment about the WNBA and CBL
Sure.
for a moment? I just want to say the chances, and I things could completely change at any point. The chances of the CEBL folding are very slim. The way that they are built
They're
is
growing quite well.
They're
Yeah.
growing really fast. Their structure and foundation is really, really solid. And just the way that everything is functioning, the chances of that happening are like slim to almost none at this point. Just for context, shout out Joey Slattery. He had Mike Moriali on Targets Weekly, the podcast that Slattery does. And Mike is already looking at in 5 to 10 years for these teams to have their own arenas where they're generating their own income. So if that is the vision and that's where they think they can get to, I think they're going to be just fine in terms. So if you're worried about getting into the league and it like folding as soon as you join, do not, because it's probably not going anywhere, especially with the way that they've created the league and it being a summer league. There will always be players. So
yeah, totally. PLD nets the lead for Canada in the bronze medal game because Canada lost to Switzerland in the World Championships. Nino Niederreiter going for gold.
I was gonna say Nino.
Nino. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff here. I'm just gonna roll through it. And Lambert as an internal replacement, top 4D doesn't sound like it's happening anymore. That's a good point. Braden Schneider could work a young right-handed shot defenseman. Talking to teams about Schmidt. Yeah, people are bringing up he has a 10-team no trade clause. So he would have to go to a team where it is for sure.
As always,
you buy them both out, you free up almost $7.5 million. Thank you, CMAC, for crunching the numbers on that. Let me just roll through that. Will the Jets land a Martin Necas?
I'd be okay with that.
I would be okay with that too. I don't
happens.
think so either. He's younger than Ehlers. Like you have to move Ehlers, but I think that's a little like, yeah, they're probably equal in value, but league wide, are they equal in value? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the perception is probably different.
Yeah. Is Arnie bringing in his own staff? I kind of brought up the fact that I don't think so, and I think they're just going to promote someone to take Arniel's job and keep the rest of the staff the same. And then as for the rest of the staff, maybe next season, the first 12 games are kind of a show me and see what happens there. But that's going to do it for the 14th edition of LFP Live. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Brian, for doing it from the ballpark. Even with the game starting in just under 3 hours now, like we said, get your tickets. And yeah, there was finally some Jets news to talk about. So we appreciate you joining us today on the Sunday morning. We're here every Sunday morning. Brian and Elliot, any final words on the way out of episode 14 of the LFP Live?
Come on down to the ballpark today. Walk-up tickets are available. And I do think that we are going to have more to talk about in the next coming weeks whether it's with
so,
actual
too.
news or we're going to be more creative, because there's a solid chance that as we wait for things to sort of fall here, it might be really quiet for a couple of weeks. So we're going to try and be more creative.
could be.
So reach out to us on social media if there's something you want to see us do, like whether it's taking things a little bit more lightly with some quizzes or specific topics. Let us know at Level Flight WPG on all of our socials. So definitely do that. But yeah, no, have a great day, and maybe we'll see you at the ballpark later.
Exactly. Elliot, any words on the way out?
I mean, I don't work for the team, but please get Sea Bears tickets. Like you will not regret it. Their next home game is June 1st. So I know there's tons of tickets still for that game, and get them quick, because I'm sure that they will sell out quite quickly. They did.
I'll tell you what,
opener.
Everyone who is in the building on Friday night is going to want to come back. Because that was incredible. T Kona, we start at 9. Not at 10. We start at 9 a.m. every Sunday, but he said he's going to go rewind. So we appreciate that. Thank you very much. My sister's in chat now. Hello. Matt's and Connor's mom, now his sister. Yeah. Well, my mom tuned in from Germany. That was a crazy twist of events. She's a big fan, I guess. Big fan of LFP Live, but, will we sign Kevin Stenlund again? That would be funny. Although I think Paul Maurice loves him, and I do think
his face-offs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. CMAC, hit the like on the way out, hit the subscribe while you're down there. It really helps us boost our content here on YouTube. We really appreciate it. And if you would rather check it out on podcasts, if you do a lot of driving, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. Rate and review those as well. We would really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in to LFP Live. We will see you all on Tuesday for episode 96 of the LFP. Make sure you find that on YouTube or podcast. Have a good Sunday, everyone, and we'll see you at the ballpark. See ya.
Peace.